Seven deadly sins and seven heavenly virtues. The capital actions that create and start all other vice and virtue. These are, of course, derived from the Christian Catholic tradition, with the minds of Ponticus Evagrius, Saint Gregory the Great, and Saint Thomas Aquinas, among others. Pride, greed, wrath, envy, sloth, gluttony, and lust are the vices that the devil works with. Humility, charity, patience, kindness, diligence, temperance, and chastity are the virtues that God asks us to follow. But a warning, this is not entirely a video series about what the great men of history have found out about sin and virtue, even though I do go over that. I'll be covering ideas that only I have discovered and thought up, and are technically nowhere near canon, though I have put in a considerably large amount of time into researching the writings of past saints and developed pathways that match their teachings. This video will simply be the introduction to further videos in a series, discussing what I've found in my research and what I've garnered about these vices and virtues. When I first began digging into these ideas, I was surprised to see many contradictions in what our current age and society thinks that these vices and virtues mean, especially in comparison to original and exact definitions. Furthermore, I see the virtues as acts of heroism, which our society desperately tries to put down, while elevating the sins. Think of how many view heroic protection negatively, or degenerate pleasure positively. When I discussed these contradictions and ideas with people over this year, many of them were taken aback at these realizations. Both of these spurred me to develop this series. So in this intro video, I plan to give you basic definition to sin and virtue, a brief description about each one of them, show you the hierarchy that I have dug out, and then give a lead on to the series that will go in depth with these ideas. A clarifying note is that I'm not talking about the cardinal and theological virtues, which together also make a list of seven. That being prudence, justice, fortitude, temperance, faith, hope, and charity. Some of the words are the same, and the definitions and teachings overlap considerably, so do not get them confused. Right now, it is just the deadly sins and heavenly virtues. To give a basic description of the sins and virtues, we first need to have a rudimentary definition of morality, specifically of Christian morality. The short answer to what ultimate virtue is would be any action that glorifies and worships the Lord the most. The bit more complex answer would be the actions you take helping as many people's souls as you can handle, within your given context, where you are, across as much time as possible. What you can do to help other souls across time. Helping means to bring out one's strength and destiny within our chaotic and social world, and then to align that with everyone else's soul in God. Destiny, another tricky word here, means both your personalized pathway to ultimate virtue and the alignment of your soul with God's plan, however you best understand that. They also mean the same thing. Simply, this all means to bring good into the world, to bring heaven onto earth, to be heroic. This is virtue. This is glorifying the Lord. If you can do that, you are being virtuous. Sin, as defined in older texts, is described as missing the mark of acting virtuously, or not even trying. To start walking down a sinful route would mean to slowly stop bringing good to the world, to stop helping where you know you should help. It then gets villainous and evil, and you cross the threshold and start aligning your actions to spiritually hurt others and God's glory. The most simple thing one could do would be to cripple as many people's potentials for good as possible, to reduce God's presence on earth. Competency also has a part to play here, because if you have power, ability, or knowledge, you can do much in the world. Your morality is more important the stronger you are, which is why you want your own leaders to be impactful, but also moral. Now, these identified virtues and sins are what has been wrestled out by the greats of theology. Each vice has been paired to its corresponding virtue, but they did not define these pairings as a separate word. To better explain my ideas, I will define the pairings of vice and virtue and its underlying duality as a dumora. For example, the pairing of wrath and patience would be one of the 7 dumoras. For the word nerds, I'm not an expert, and just compressed the phrase moral dualism, meaning the duality of good and evil, into one word, dumora. It's not the French rugby player, though he's cool. Our first dumora is of the spiritual placement of the self, pride and humility. This one deals with how you view yourself in relation to where you actually are, where your soul is, what you have done, and where you can go. To be prideful is to place yourself above where you actually stand. To be humble is to place yourself where you currently understand and honestly understand yourself to be. Since we are humans, we can never get the full picture of where we are, but to be humble means to make your best assumption, and then to act accordingly. The dumora desire, of the want for more, deals with greed and charity. It might seem strange to place charity within the domain of wanting more, but this is another sign of how the modern world has redefined these ideas. To be generous, you first need to be able to generate. Charity is the idea of not only figuring out how to generate, but then to be able to give that away for the greater good of all. Greed is being able to generate, or wanting to, only for oneself, or away from the good of all. The next dumora deals with the use of force, with wrath and patience. Now you most likely will hear physical force when I say force, but I mean any way of placing your will onto the world. Currently, our society places any use of force, especially physical force, under a sinful umbrella. All wrath is aggression and power in and of themselves. This is wrong. They think that patience is to be weakly stepped on by those who want to. This is also wrong. Patience is using your ability to force your will into the world for the good, while wrath is only for the self or even for evil. The fourth dumora is envy and kindness. This one deals with the want to change others or yourself. Kindness is to change people for the better, to bring out the good within their soul out into the world. Envy is to change people for the worse, to bring about bad in the world, and to negatively affect others. Nowadays, people confuse being nice with being kind. As I'll expand upon in his own video, being mean can be kindness if it's put into the context of bringing goodness into the world. Smiling through your teeth and then gossiping would be envy, especially if you are trying to ignore your own reality by doing so. The fifth is sloth and diligence, the dumora of spiritual peace. Peaceful rest is an important part of life, creating a duality with work. Being diligent does eventually allow you to rest, but only after embracing the challenges of the day and doing what needs to be done. To be slothful is to take that rest right away and to give in to that urge to not care. To think that you don't need to do the work, even though you know you do, then to give in to the panic or boredom and ignore the world. Sloth is that urge to turn away when you know you should look. In our world, doing busy work is considered diligence, but this is actually wrong, as you work to be blind. The sixth dumora deals with consumption, so gluttony and temperance. These handle any form of intake, whether food, drink, drugs, scrolling, fame, and much more. Gluttony is gorging yourself in some consumptive act to get away from reality, to experience that high ecstasy from that short moment of time, to hide from what pains you. Temperance is the opposite, but not what you think it is. It's not the complete renouncement or foregoing of the pleasures of the world. It is putting them in their proper place. If their urges control your habits instead of you controlling them, then you need to distance yourself. If you can control yourself and embrace the world while doing so, then it's fine to do them. Last but not least, seventh dumora is of sexual desire, lust, and chastity. This is one of the most prevalent and strongest desires to everyone. Lust itself is the improper pursuit of your sexual desire and, again, is used to ignore the world. The idea being to wrap yourself in pleasure, to ignore your responsibilities for just a moment. Just like with temperance, you can still enjoy this while aligning yourself to the greatest good. With chastity, Marriage is a star example of this process. A committed, monogamous, and sexual union between a man and a woman is the foundational pillar of all societies. Sex in this context is justified as it aligns with God. Now, some of y'all noticed that when I described a sin or virtue, that seemed to at least partially describe another one, as if there were some connection between them. I noticed this as well and decided to go a little deeper myself. Here I'll give a taste of how the patterns work and how they all connect to each other. Currently in the canon of the capital sins and virtues, the Demora of pride and humility stands at the top of them all. All sin starts with pride, and all virtue starts with humility. How you place yourself, whether correct or not, is a precondition and a fundamental part of every other sin and virtue. The Catholic canon stops here, but I think it goes further than that. This is a glimpse of what I've found. Again, it all starts with pride and humility, but then immediately splits into two branches: the path of the want for more and the path to spiritual peace. The path of desire goes from pride, humility, to greed, charity, to patience, wrath, to ending kindness, while the path of spiritual peace goes from pride, humility, to sloth, diligence, to gluttony, temperance, and finally to lust, chastity. Before I go any further, I will point out that this new branch structure does not change the fundamental structure of sin and virtue, but shows how they connect to and influence each other. The flow of the first branch goes from where you place yourself, to wanting more, to using force to get it, and then to changing other people. On the sinful side, you place yourself higher than you should in pride. You want more for only your sake or for the wrong reasons, in greed. You use force to make sure it happens in wrath, and with force you tear others down in envy. This shows you the pathway of action for evil, and how sin starts with other sins. On the virtuous side, you place yourself where you understand yourself to be in humility. You want more goodness in the world for everyone in charity. You use your force of will in the world to see it through in patience. Then you change others for the better in kindness. If you want to change the world properly and make it better, this is how you do it. The flow of the second branch goes from where you place yourself, again, to entering into a tranquil state, to how to consume in relation to that, then to how to fulfill your sexual desire. On the sinful side, you place yourself higher than you should in pride, ignore the world to get to peace in sloth, blindly consume to do so in gluttony, and to specifically do this sexually in lust. This is the pathway to ignore the world around you, and to not take hold of any of your responsibilities. On the virtuous side, you start by placing yourself where you understand yourself to be in humility, become aware to the world to reach peace and diligence, to ration out and temper your desires in temperance, and then to do this with your sexual desire in chastity. This is how you take hold of your life and stay awake as the world changes around you. Now, the Demoras flow down into each branch, but are also influenced by the opposite branch. For example, sloth will always be a part of wrath, as it gives the telltale blindness to that rage, while diligence will always be in patience, as it gives that alertness within that calm. There are some more patterns and connections between the sins and virtues that I honestly would love to describe and show y'all. But I am trying to make this intro video as short as possible. I think it's already going to get to 20 minutes. I will, however, explain all these interesting connections and dive deeper than the surface level of what I have described previously in their own video. With the video series that comes next, I will fully explain Christian morality, every virtue and vice pairing, Demora, the hierarchy of these Demoras, the underlying pattern of every sin and virtue, along with the big picture connections. I hope you tune in and make sure to leave a comment, for consciousness and dialogue is how we get to the truth.